and welcome. I'm Piers Ridyard, CEO of RDX Works, a core developer of the decentralized finance protocol Radix, a public ledger entirely focused on bringing DeFi into the mainstream. This is our podcast, the DeFi Download, a show about decentralized finance and all things crypto, where we dive into the details of the projects, assets, and services that are powering the DeFi revolution. Today, I'm joined by Max, co-founder of Lisk. Lisk was launched on the 24th of May 2016 and is a blockchain application platform which climbed to be within the top 10 on CoinMarketCap. It is a decentralized public layer 1 designed to make blockchain accessible by creating a world in which everyone benefits from this technology. Max, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Piers, thank you so much for having me, and hello, everyone.
Awesome. So, been in the space for 10 years, in crypto for 10 years, started Lisk on the 2nd of January 2016, and then on the 24th of May 2016, you then launched the project. So let's just start with what were you doing before you started Lisk? As in, what got you into crypto, and what was your journey to Lisk? And then I'd love to talk a little bit more about those first few heady months, because I'm sure they were insane.
Yeah, of course. So I got into crypto in 2012, and in the beginning of the year, I was asking the best student at my university what he thinks about crypto or Bitcoin at that time. And he was saying, it's too late, it's not worth it anymore. And a few months after that, I was reading about it again and again on all these different tech websites. I was like, it has to be something. So I was reading much more about it. And then at one point, at a random night, it's actually kind of a funny story, I got a bottle against my head, and I got 600-700 euros for that. And from that money, because I was a very broke student.
You got what, sorry, against your hat?
A bottle.
A bottle against your hat?
Yeah, there was a guy throwing a bottle, and it hit me, and I got 600-700 euros from that.
Okay.
And I used that money to build a miner. And really, I had a very tiny apartment, no money at all. So I used that money to build this miner, essentially working as a heater for my apartment. And this miner forced me to stay inside crypto. And I got really involved with different communities, went from very decentralized communities towards more centrally organized communities, and had quite a journey there where I just discovered that even a cryptocurrency needs an entity behind it at the beginning of its stage, right, to just push the project forward, do marketing, just centrally organize it so that something can come out of it.
Do you still believe that?
Yes.
You could argue, or would you argue that Bitcoin is the exception that proves the rule, or would you argue that Bitcoin actually has some of those now anyway?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin has some of those, like Blockstream, heavily included in the core development and research of the protocol. And many of its exchanges are also actively pushing it forward. So they act kind of like entities behind the project pushing it forward. Mm-hmm. But Bitcoin still is one of the exceptions. Mm-hmm. You see that other cryptocurrencies, which were totally decentralized with an anonymous founder, for example, Nxt, they just were forgotten about. And then in contrast, projects which have an entity behind them, like Ethereum, Solana, and co., they're really showing tremendous strength having that, So I still think it is, but I really hope that at one point it isn't anymore, so that these projects can become fully decentralized. But if the industry and the various protocols are not maturing further, then it's still going to take a while.
So what was it in between 2012 and 2016 that made you go, these things, because that was pre-Ethereum, mm-hmm. right? As in it crossed over to when Ethereum was launched, Ethereum being launched sort of 2014, 2015. But what was it that started to make you realize from spending time in these decentralized communities that some sort of organizing entity was a good idea?
Yeah. So I just saw that essentially there was no unity behind these projects. No one who actively developed the protocol forward, besides this one person or two people just saying, yeah, I'm here, I do it. But there was no real organization behind it, no process, no no Scrum team, for example, kicking the can forward on a daily basis. And then the more important thing, actually, because that's open source development, it still kind of works. But the more important thing is marketing. Like, how can you promote a project if no one is responsible for it? Could be kind of like a decentralized grassroots effort, but this is so difficult, especially as the industry matures, and then an advertisement costs like $40,000-$50,000 a day. Who's paying for that, for example? If there's no complicated DAO structure in place, no one would pay for that. But we're also not at the point yet where, for example, the DAO infrastructure is mature enough that we would have such a setup. So I just realized at one point when we were having discussions, okay, who's now doing the website? Who is now doing promotion? Who's managing the community? Who is providing support? That we need, an entity or an organization behind that. And that's where I moved from one of these very decentralized projects to a very new project, which just started and which had a team of like 6-7 people, which raised like, I think, 200,000 euros at that time in order to develop its project. This actually caused me to move into this kind of realm.
So what was the decentralized, if you can say, what was the decentralized?
Yeah, the decentralized project was Nxt or Next.
Nxt, okay, yeah.
And the centralized project was Crypti.
Crypti, interesting. Because the Nxt community was almost like vampire attacked by the NEM community, right? It was sort of like, or it was like an offshoot. I don't actually know what the politics were at that point, but there was definitely when NEM grew, Nxt died, sort of as a direct result.
Exactly. I think this is a very big threat for cryptocurrency communities, that someone's just forking the project and leapfrogs from former hard work, and then just takes the community with them because they're offering 100% investment bonuses or something like this, like insane rates.
Right.
And this happened with Next. At one point, it also happened at Lisk. And I think it's a big threat and has a very big negative effect on the overall growth of a project.
Yeah, I mean, it has a negative effect on everything. It makes the project inward-looking, for a start. It makes the community inward-looking. It stops the community looking outwards and going, how can we expand? And starts going, well, I'm fighting over this piece or that piece of territory. But we'll get onto that, because I'm sure that's going to be fascinating. But so you move from Nxt to Crypti. What did you call it, Crypti?
Crypti, yeah.
Yeah, Crypti. Okay. And so Crypti raised a bit of money, and you started to see some better results from this sort of like centralized, organized way of doing things. So like, was it there from there that you realized that there was a space for something like Lisk, or was there a...
Yes. So at that point, I realized that, of course, the network, the blockchain, and the community, they're all decentralized. But if there's a small team just kicking the can forward on a daily basis, like I said, the project can really get somewhere. Problem is, though, this project I just mentioned only raised 200K. After like 2 years, this money was gone, I never really got a salary. Sometimes I got like a few $100 for 1 month, but which felt like 2 months worth of work. So I realized the concept works, but its implementation at that time, or also the money raised, were not enough. So that's where I thought, okay, something like Lisk can work. And I raised it with the team at Crypti there.
So what was, just for context, what was Crypti doing, or what were they trying to do?
They were doing something very similar. They were working on tools for developers to simplify blockchain development.
Okay.
But very rudimentary, not really thought out at that time. There were many problems, which we realized only later, because we were asking internally to the team, hey, we have this idea, do you want to jump on board? But by that time, they were not really interested anymore. And so my partner, Oliver Beddow, and myself, we continued with Lisk ourselves, but picked essentially their source code in an open source manner to speed up our bootstrapping period. Later on, this cost us 2 years of development time, which I will get into detail later. But this was essentially our start of Lisk, and turned out to be very successful from the beginning.
So the sort of the starting point of Lisk was, I suppose, I'm reading back to you, and please tell me if I'm wrong on this, was this realization that developer tools and development was going to be incredibly important for the blockchain space. What was and that there was that to do that, you kind of needed to be a bit more ambitious. You needed to raise a bit more money and to be a bit more like sort of broader in your vision in how that was being pulled off. So what was the January the 2nd, when sort of Lisk was founded, what was the founding ethos? What was the founding vision of Lisk at that point?
Yeah. So, we realized that developer tooling or infrastructure is the most important because this industry is so young. And 2016 was really a very different landscape. There was no DeFi, there was no NFTs, there weren't even like proper functioning D-apps, really. It was just starting, and when the price crashed, everyone thought that's it with the industry. Now, not anymore, but at that time, it was really the Wild West still. Of course, no comparison to 2012, but still very early days. And my partner and I, we were thinking like, okay, let's start, but let's have one holiday, one normal Christmas before we start. Right on the 2nd of January, because we felt like our lives will not be the same anymore, like insanity will be present for the next decades, probably from that point on, and it turned out to be true. So we just started on the 2nd. And the vision, the ethos was
it a good Christmas, incidentally?
Say it again?
Was it a good Christmas?
It was a very good Christmas.
Was it the right decision?
Yeah, of course. My birthday is on the 25th of December, so it was also a very nice birthday, But we started with the vision to simplify blockchain application development. So we didn't pick up the wording of D-apps, what Ethereum really had. We really wanted to build blockchain applications on their own blockchains. And not with smart contracts in order to solve the scalability problem by having these app-specific chains. And that was the vision from the beginning. And then over the years, we refined it a little bit here and there, but basically it still stands to this day. We just had an event where I showcased the ultimate vision for Lisk, and it's pretty much the same thing. We want to make blockchain more accessible by offering users and developers a platform where they can easily dive into this technology for either using it and benefiting from it or building with or on it. And this is still the case today. It takes a long time to get to the end of the road, but I think it was a very important vision for the industry overall, because it leads to more experimentation, and this experimentation leads to new industries being formed, like DeFi, like NFTs, or GameFi. And then out of this experimentation and finding industries, they can really start working out proper blockchain applications, which then people are using and benefiting, hopefully, from at one point in their lives.
So it's really interesting. I'm sure we'll come back to this theme later, but like someone who's been in the industry for a decade, I'm sure you'll agree with this idea that every single thing that is happening in the space is often not a new idea. It's a refinement of an idea, because like things that people were talking about being possible back in, I got in 2014, 2015, and like the big idea was DAOs then. And futarchy and like game theory, like incentive design and all this kind of stuff, which was kind of killed to some extent by the DAO hack, which like a decent percentage of the total Ethereum supply, got hacked and ended up being the start of Ethereum Classic. But like it's so interesting because you're talking about, Lisk is a multi-chain approach where you have app-specific blockchains, and if you look at Avalanche or Cosmos or Polkadot, you'll see a lot of their echoing of the ideas of that design thinking and how they've approached that, but with the benefit of seeing what came before, right, and benefit of seeing what worked and what didn't work. So you guys have launched. you've put up your first website, and you've decided that you're going to do an ICO.
Mm-hmm.
So what was, describe to me as much as you can that process of like going from we're going to raise money to having raised the money, and how much money you guys actually raised.
Yeah. So I would say it was weeks on like working hours on steroids. I don't even know how to say that. I basically never left my computer anymore at that time. We were really starting from scratch. So we are in the beginning just thinking about names for the project, getting in touch with like remote freelance designers to create a logo. I crafted the website. My partner spin up like a test net, like very like amateurish steps in the beginning, you know. But because the industry was so young, just by the fact that we had our faces and real life names on the website.
You doxed yourself, you crazy animals.
Well, that was but only that fact led to probably like 2,500 Bitcoin being invested into us every week.
2,500 Bitcoin every week.
Yes, and then so that led to around 7,000-8,000 after like 3 weeks, and then Microsoft in a blog post announced a partnership. We didn't even know about that too much. It was just that you can spin up a Lisk node on Microsoft Azure cloud services.
Oh, I think I remember this.
But that was a partnership to them, and they called it like that, and boom, 7,000 more Bitcoin in the last week. That's how we ended up with 14,000 Bitcoin being raised in the ICO.
And what was 14,000 Bitcoin's value at that point?
Yeah, $5.8 million.
$5.8 million. Yes. And like, just to put that in context, at that time, that was a very respectable raise. That was you guys were well into the sort of the top tier of the raises that were happening at that point.
We were the, I think, second most successful crowd fund in the crypto space at that time ever. Ethereum was one. We were the most successful crowd fund in Germany ever at that time.
As in like full stop in any industry.
Any industry. I mean, it's just 6 years, but if you look back, even like crowdfunding platforms just started out, you know? Like they are so normal today, but it was a different
like 5.8 million is what would have been considered then a very impressive number. You know, that I think that was the first time I heard about Lisk was just after your raise, because you guys, I can't remember, did you guys do a hard cap or did you have a time period?
No, we didn't have a cap. We just had a time period of 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's obviously plenty of time to raise funds.
And believe me or not, but we invented many tactics everyone copied. Bonus structures, which like in the first week were higher than in the second and third week. First day investor bonuses, these kind of things. We invented that, you know, and like then everyone did it. So it was,
and then EOS perfected it.
Well, yes, they are masters at this game.
With the masters, they were like, doesn't need to be 4 weeks. How about an entire year?
Amazing. Well, it's a genius in its own kind, right? But yeah, during that time, it was just crazy because I was taking care of all the publicly facing topics from website to community to investors, whatever. My partner was doing everything in regards to technology. And then we raised that money and we realized, damn, we have so much money now, but no entity, no legal structure. So we researched, where can we do it? And we obviously wanted to do it in Germany first, but we tried it for a few months and it was impossible. And then one of our advisors recommended us to go to Switzerland Zug because Ethereum was just established there. And it worked. It was the only place in the entire world where it was possible. So we went to Switzerland, and by the end of 2016, we finally had a legal entity. That means for 1 whole year, we were not allowed to touch the money, not even for a second, not even being able to touch the money. It was in a multi-signature account. And then that year, I had to finance everything myself. And at the end of the year, we could move everything into the Swiss foundation, the Lisk Foundation, And from there on, we were able to properly start. So essentially, the project really just started in 2017. Before that, it was like a 2 or 3 man show. Oliver, myself, and then like a few community members, which were very active at the time, but not really like a full-time employee or something.
So what's your main like overriding memory of this time?
Of 2016, you mean?
Yeah.
Like it all vanished because I was not able to get any sleep, so my memory is not working properly anymore. But it was just constant work, problem after problem after problem, because the code base we took was like rubbish, like how you call it, trash, you know.
You also took a very strange, sort of like, strange is the wrong word. You guys took an interesting decision in JavaScript, right? So I assume Crypti was JavaScript as well.
Yeah.
So it was a decision you guys inherited. But what was the original decision behind JavaScript, and then like what did you guys have to do to make it actually work?
So the original developer at Crypti basically, I think, copied or ported over the Nxt code base, which was written in Java, to JavaScript, which are two entirely different languages for everyone who doesn't know that. So he ported that over. And
very, very different languages.
Yes. And as you pointed out, we just inherited that language, but we made it part of our vision and our pitch that we are essentially targeting these many, many millions of JavaScript developers. It has the most developers in the world knowing that language, in order to bring them into the industry. Because we feel like Ethereum was very elite, still is, and requires a very high intellect and skill set to be even able to get into. And looking nowadays, Polkadot is the same thing. So we took it on board as part of our DNA, so to say, to really attract a developer which might not be that elite, which might not be that genius, like just an average to good developer. And that person should be able to do blockchain technology as well. That's our whole idea, to bring blockchain development also to the masses of developers. And JavaScript fits in. So we didn't make it our sales. We didn't make our sales pitch like the fastest, the most secure in terms of statistically like compiled language, whatever. We just wanted to be the most accessible.
You didn't decide that Haskell was a good idea.
I think it's not a good idea at all. But the research is great of Cardano, and Charles is a dear friend. He's doing a tremendous job there. But I think the programming language is not really targeting who we are trying to target, let's say it like this.
Right.
We inherited that, made it part of our pitch, and we kept it on board until today, because actually nowadays we think it's a great idea. It gives us a very unique pitch over other projects like Cosmos and Polkadot doing exactly the same thing as our idea was or is. So they leapfrogged essentially from our idea into their own projects. For me, accessibility is still the most important thing we have to focus on, user experience and getting new people into the industry, because it cannot continue to be this closed community of people like laughing at other people for having questions,
right,
or not knowing what to do in certain scenarios or whatever, you know. And we see that crypto is becoming mainstream, that everyone wants to get involved because, well, kind of it is the future. It is the next evolution of the internet. So, at least parts of the next internet. So everyone has to get on board to make this a tremendous success, to make it a huge success for the world. So that's our whole pitch. We want to target everyone.
So 2016 to 2017, you guys are working out the legals and basically reprogramming the code base so that it can actually work for your vision. What's happening with the community? Like, how does the Lisk community start? Who are your like initial members, and then how did you guys grow it? Which parts were organic and surprising, and which bits were sort of like strategy and managed?
So yes, we took on the code base. We worked on it actually not only in 2016, but also 2017 and partially 2018, but we were only able to hire a team in 2017 and then started from the first employee, like didn't go overnight. It also took some time to hire then the full team. And well, the community was very big at that time because it was something new, something fresh. Many people just jumped on it. And everyone was really excited about everything. And we were like, okay, we took this code base, we can get it up and running in like 2 years. Turned out it just took 2 years to refactor and rewrite the code base to bring it into a good state. And then another 2 years to publish this SDK. And then another 2 years to bring the protocol up to the current standards, and then another 1 year to bring the platform to life, which will be this year. So it took much, much longer than initially assumed, but the people were really hyped at that time. And there was so much organically happening, just people flocking to our project, buying the token, us rising in the market cap, as you initially said, into the top 10 of all projects. And that wasn't even where our market cap was at the peak. Which was $4 billion.
So which from a raise of 5 point something million, that's pretty good going.
Yes, exactly. But everyone was hyped. Everyone was excited. Everyone was helping each other. It was a very good time. And then, we got into this, what was it? When was it? 17, 18 mega hype of altcoins, where like most altcoins never recovered from, because their valuations were so high that for many it's nearly impossible to get back to that. And also for Lisk, it's just price-wise like down and down and down and down from that point on. In between,
so you guys peaked. I'm trying. It looks around 30 something.
40. I think it was
higher. Bigger. Yeah, 30. According to CoinGecko, 34.92 on January the 7th, 2018. Potentially 40 on other markets, and now trading at 191. And like just to reiterate to anyone who wasn't around in the 2017 bull run, that it was absolutely insane, the level of expectation versus actually what was being delivered as technology projects. And many projects died relatively soon after that, but you guys didn't. You guys kept going. So for anyone who's sort of gone through the ups and downs of community management during that period, and seen both sides of how a community can be for the team and for you, like what were the hard lessons that you felt you learned sort of post that point?
I think the hardest lesson is that the sentiment in the community correlates directly to the price. Directly. And it's not so much the absolute price, but rather the relative price change. So if it's going up, if the trend is up, everyone's happy. If the trend is down, price going down, everyone hates you to their guts. And it's really between me being the second coming of Jesus to like getting death threats, like it's like complete spectrum. And all is linked to the price. In our case, maybe this is also due to the reason that development-wise, we are very active, one of the most actively developed projects. We have always in the rankings, we're at the top, in terms of development activity. Maybe that's why for us it's so closely linked to the price. Also because of this 2017 mania, where everyone had unrealistic expectations, and the price went to $40 a piece, and now it's hovering around $2. And there's such high fluctuations in the price because a few months back we were at $11, for example.
Right.
But we cannot control the price, and that means we hardly can control the community sentiment. There have been many mistakes done along the way, no question, but this is really a lesson learned. So the problem with that is I can keep going, but the team, it's really affecting the team.
Right.
Getting hate every day,
Right.
Today, I would say it's much better sentiment overall because the industry is slowly maturing, and only the hardcore fans are sticking in the community, and they're helping and are very supportive. But in between, in these years, it was really brutal in some moments, and I think that's also part of the reason why the marketing team is also seeing, in terms of human resources, a high fluctuation. And it's a problem many people are not even aware of. If they're constantly moaning and complaining about something, that it's also affecting the team behind it, and that it actually has the opposite effect, that they're also getting motivated and depressed by the whole fact, essentially, because what people don't realize that behind every of these projects, they're real people, and we are really working our ass off to make this happen. Right. But we can't control the price. We're doing some tactics to try to stabilize it somehow, but it's very tough. We can't really control it. And then you have these other projects with a lot of venture capitalist money. We were too soon for that. We have no VCs on board. So you have these other projects which essentially gave out like 20% of their tokens in a pre-sale to venture capitalists, and then 2% in a public round, and keeping like all the other tokens, and they're at a $50 billion market cap because no one actually holds the token, or just a few concentrated hands. Then we can't just compete with that in terms of market cap, but we can compete in terms of development and technology, and that's what we are doing. And that's actually what people should focus on. So,
it's really interesting because I think that when you're part of a crowd, it's very difficult, like talking about the community side of things. When you're part of a crowd, it's very difficult to realize that your sort of like negative voice is actually one of many. And like that collective pressure is because it's one versus, I mean, what was your community at peak? How many people did you have in your community at peak?
Impossible to say, but several thousand, few 10,000. I have no idea.
A few tens of thousands. So like, even if you have only 360 people, it's just one person says one negative thing to you once a year, that's a negative thing every single day spread out, right? Yeah. And that that effect, and I think it's really true, and it's a really interesting, difficult to manage phenomenon, which is like community matters a great deal for the success of a platform, but at the same time, community's pressure on top of the team can end up meaning that you get a large turnover of team very quickly. And so you have to find some way in which you can both protect the team, but also like highlight what the team is doing and why what they're doing is important, and give the community the feeling that they're being included in what, like the journey. Because I suppose the worst mistakes I ever made were actually from when I did Kickstarter. I did a Kickstarter project before I did Radix. My first ever company was a Kickstarter project, and it was like a hugely well funded at the time. It was only $384,000, so like, really not that well funded by any other metric, but like $384,000, and I was a poor student when I did it as well. And the thing that I kept wanting to do with my community, even when there was like things that were going wrong, was like try and spin the news in some way, be like, oh, this went wrong, but don't worry, like it's like this is still going to happen. And the time frames that I would give would be these tiny time frames. I'd be like, in a week's time, everything's going to be fixed. And the week comes around, and you're like, shit, Mars broken.
Big mistake, huh?
So like, what have you changed in how you like run your team to help create that buffer whilst maintain that like that visibility within the community, and help, I suppose, like your team be mentally tough towards this stuff as well?
So on the one side, we changed to never give any time estimates ever anymore. Never, ever, that's our golden rule now. And like luckily on the positive side, you can spin the sentiment by giving something to hope for, right? And they link it to the price, but at least if they say, okay, soon the platform is launching, or this is coming out, then maybe the price goes up, and then we're feeling better. So that's one side effect we are experiencing, that, well, it becomes easier because the time of our launch, where we launch our basically vision we had in the beginning, is coming closer and closer. It will be this year. We just announced it. We're launching interoperability, and with that, everyone can build their own blockchain apps and connect them to our blockchain so that they are all connected with each other.
Nice.
And everyone's hoping for that. And that can, shift the community sentiment, but also the team's sentiment, because they essentially see the light at the end of the tunnel. They see that we are finally launching the platform, that we are finally getting on with our vision. And that gives a lot of hope. Price-wise, but also just use case-wise, because we get the team on with our vision, not with the price. So once they see our vision is actually being implemented and it's coming, that of course gives a big motivational boost. So it becomes easier, but it's still a tour de force. We still have to consistently introduce happiness into the community, and that means the leadership team here at the company needs to infuse or bring in happiness into the team so that they can forward it to the community.
And how do you do that?
Well, that's just
your leadership team.
Yeah, that's just again a focus on the vision, a focus on the product development, on the progress we are making. It's luckily also the industries progress, like DeFi, NFT, because it gives them a lot of reassurance that blockchain is not going away, that it's here to stay. It's competitors like Cosmos or Polkadot, which are doing the same thing and are very successful with that, but just we're able to execute quicker. This gives a lot of reassurance, and we can use that to spin the motivation internally and externally to the positive. Price still plays a very big role. And now that the platform launch is coming sooner, we can focus on the promotion and business development of the platform as well. We didn't want to do that before because, we did it in 2016, but at that time on CoinMarketCap, we paid $500 for 1 month for an advertisement which had a 25%
$500 or $500,000?
$500. Now you pay $40,000-$50,000 for 1 day at 10%.
$500 for 1 month on CoinMarketCap.
Yes, that was great, So there we did marketing, but nowadays it's just so expensive. We couldn't do it for the last 2-3 years because we would have burned millions without even the platform being live. But that's coming again. This year we are continuously getting louder towards the platform launch. So that also should bring in new people into our community. The price hopefully will be affected by that as well. And then the whole project will have a self-fulfilling prophecy, boost in motivation and positiveness again. And that's what we're working towards.
That's really interesting. And so how big are you guys now?
We have the Lisk Foundation in Switzerland, which employs 4 people and has 3 board members. And we have Lightcurve, which is our development, research, marketing, business development, and design company, essentially, or contractor in Berlin, which is right now at around 42 people. And we have heavy recruitment plans. So we are, I think, having 14 open positions.
Wow.
Some of them are being hired multiple times. So we're looking to scale up the team to, I guess, 70 people or so, 60, 70 people towards the end of the year, and working with contractors, of course, together as well, like PR agencies, to bring the total team size to around 80 people.
And I assume you guys have been here before, as in you've been bigger than where you were now. How big have you been before?
We were at exactly 80 people before.
You were 80 people.
That was the max.
And so what mistakes did you make in scaling the team then? And what are you changing now you get a chance to do it again?
Yeah, so the best thing we actually did in the beginning is to not listen to our advisors and sticking to Bitcoin, not selling and dumping.
You held Bitcoin.
Yeah. And
nice.
Like they said at that time, sell half and pump it all into market cap and into marketing and buying back LSK tokens. That's what they advised. We said, no, we're going to hold it. And then at the peak of
14,000 Bitcoin. I'm assuming you don't have full 14,000, but like that's done pretty well.
Yes, we hold over $100 million right now.
Holy moly.
Assets. And then at the peak of human resources in the company, we faced a lot of pressure because the Bitcoin price was crashing. It went like from 20K to 3,500 or something.
Yep, I remember that.
And we faced a lot of pressure by the community, by our advisors, by our employees, by our by everyone, by our even lawyers, Everyone was telling us, sell. You have to make sure that you can pay your people, that you can bring your project to the end. That was the biggest mistake, because then we actually sold.
At 3.5.
Not at 3.5, because that was the day where we transferred the money. But we're not allowed to sell on one day. We always have to stretch it. But the community, of course, saw we transferred on that day. So to this day, they think we sold at 3.5. We didn't. But we sold around that time over a period of like 2 months or 3 months. But at a bad price. Right. That was the worst mistake ever. And after that, we then set up structures and systems. So we have now 1 year in fiat. We have 2 years in stable coins, which also generate currently 160,000 USDC every month in passive income, which we're using to buy back LSK tokens from the market. So we're doing all of that in order to secure ourselves. And until 2025, we want to drive enough revenue to sustain ourselves. So that's one of the big goals, to become sustainable. So out of this big lesson, which we survived only because we have so much money, a lot of good things came out to be. But that was really the worst. And because at that time we had to sell, we also said we have to save money everywhere. And that forced us to do our hardest decision we ever had to make in our lives, to lay off 40 people.
Yep.
And with that, there was a cascading effect of like another 10 people leaving. So we were left with 30 people, but it had its positives. Because, going through that insanity of $40 and then back to like $2 or whatever, it has a big psychological effect on people. And people were demotivated. They didn't want to work. Like many didn't want to work anymore. And they only stayed because of either nice token option plans or because of very good salary, but they were not that motivated anymore. And this layoff really allowed us to keep the good people, and lay off the people who were not that motivated anymore. So in the long run, it was really healthy for us. But it was the most difficult thing I ever done, because I worked like crazy with these people, many hours, went to conferences, went to like events and so on and so forth. And it was not a nice thing to do, but for the project, it was really vital and really helped us in the long run.
Yeah. And in terms of like scaling the organization, I assume that we went from a small organization to 80 people pretty quickly. What are you doing differently in how you're scaling this time versus how you scaled last time?
Yeah, I would say 2 things. One is no sacrifices or no
compromises.
No compromises, exactly.
Okay.
Back in the day, we sometimes hired just to find someone because we're growing.
We need someone to fill this role.
Yes,
and every single person in the interview goes, but you still hire them.
Well, it was not that bad, but sometimes we were like, but this person probably needs a bit longer to get onboarded. But we were like, doesn't matter. We need people because we have this and that, and we were growing fast, and we needed like hands, Today, we don't take compromises anymore. We got this calmness, because we went through that experience. We matured as, company founders, but also as a company itself. So we take our time with recruitment. If a person is not really 100% fit, we just wait for a better candidate to come. And the second one, even more important, is proper leadership. At that time, we didn't have the proper leadership in place. We stepped up too quickly.
You mean you didn't have enough senior people next to you to help organize, manage so many people?
Exactly. In certain positions, the people were just too junior to be head of departments or leads of products or whatever. And that's where we are now getting more experienced people on board, or people which also have been with us for many, many years and just know their job, know what they should do. And that helps us then again to scale up the company with a proper structure. Like back in the day, we contracted up with like a consultancy to figure out the best structure. Big no-go, like you always know best what's for your company. Like these externals, they come
Just sit down and think of it yourself, right?
Exactly,
But you have to spend the time.
Yeah, exactly. And do it slowly, get the right people into the right positions, and then it's going to be good, And we see a lot of success right now. It's going really well. We have more departments than before, a bit more flat structure, but stronger individuals, and scaling up now with this strong foundation should be no problem, in contrast to back in the day. But back in the day, it wasn't all running bad. It was still okay. But in contrast to today, I just see how much better it can run, So yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, it's been such a pleasure talking to you about your journey to now. I really appreciate it, Max, and thank you for being so generous with your time. If people want to get involved in Lisk, either from the point of view of joining your team or from the point of view of getting involved in the community, how do you recommend people get started?
So if they want to get involved with our community, with our products, with our vision, with blockchain applications built in our ecosystem, whatever that is, please head to our Lisk chat. It's a Discord server. It's just reachable on lisk.chat or through our website. So that's pretty simple. If you're looking for a job in the blockchain industry at Lisk, well, then it would be a job at Lightcurve here in Berlin.
Right.
We're remote first. You can be anywhere within the Berlin time zone, plus minus 3-4 hours. And there you go to lightcurve.io. You can also find it on the lisk.com website in the footer under careers, I think. We're looking for kind of everything, like blockchain backend developers, front-end developers. We're looking for marketeers, content creators, designers, business developers, everything across the board. So I'm sure there are enough opportunities for you to find. But I would say always good to check out the Lisk chat first and get a little bit involved with our community to feel the spirit, because that's in the recruitment process also very important, that we get people with this blockchain spirit and ethos already imprinted, because we made the experience if people don't have that when they begin, it takes a very long time for them to get it. Maybe sometimes they never get it because they're just not the right fit. So that's a very important thing we look at nowadays. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Max.
Thank you so much for having me.